Penguin Random House presents Hindu Myths and Legends Volume 2 by William Radice, read by Ranvijay Pratap Singh. Introduction. Rushing up towards them was a sparkling and seemingly infinite expanse of water. The surface of Kahani appeared, as far as Harun's eye could see, to be entirely liquid, and what water it was! It shone with colours everywhere, colours in a brilliant riot, colours such as Harun could never have imagined, and it was evidently a warm ocean. Harun could see steam rising off it, steam that glowed in the sunlight. He caught his breath. "The ocean of the streams of story," said the water genie, his blue whiskers bristling with pride. Wasn't it worth travelling so far and fast to see? Salman Rushdie, Harun and the Sea of Stories. Salman Rushdie used an ancient and familiar image when he wrote his enchanting fable about the storyteller Rashid and his son Harun, in which Rashid's storytelling gift is suddenly cut off when Katam Shud, the evil prince of silence, poisons and attempts to plug Kahani, the Sea of Stories. In about AD 1070, Somadeva, a Kashmiri Brahmin, wrote in Sanskrit his enormous and celebrated masterpiece, the Kathasaritasagara, which means the ocean, Sagara of streams, Sarit of story, Katha. Several of the stories in the present volume have been taken from that collection, which is like Ovid, Boccaccio, Chaucer, and La Fontaine rolled into one, and versions of many stories that I have taken from other sources can also be found in it. Somadeva understood that in Indian tradition, myths and legends and folk tales shade into one another, and that together they form a unity. The metaphor of an ocean seems to be the only one huge and capacious enough to represent something so fluid, so deep, so changeable in mood, so beautiful, yet often so frightening. The volumes that follow here are my own reckless attempt to explore that ocean. I invite you, the reader, to set sail with me and stay aboard for as long as your daring or your energy lasts. You may sometimes feel, as I often did when writing the book, that you are in a danger of sinking. But when you reach the shore again, I think you will feel exhilarated, and your life will never be the same again. As a specialist in Bengali language and literature, I have often been aware that the literary works I have studied or translated are like ships floating on the Indian Ocean of stories. By using dictionaries and reference books, I have tried to understand what they owe to the ocean, how without it they wouldn't float at all. But one has to embark on a longer, riskier voyage, as for the first time I have in this book to appreciate its full extent and variety. To convey that range, here are some notes on just a few of the ships in which I have previously sailed. Some of them, through translation or through transformation into divergent media, have travelled to other oceans to float on waters from the Western tradition. The poetry of Michael Madhusudan Dutt, 1824 to 1873. Acknowledged as the founder of modern Bengali poetry and drama, Madhusudan could not have conceived his masterpiece, the epic poem Meghanad Badh Kavya, written in the early 1860s, without India's epic and mythological tradition, based on the story of the Ramayana, which tells the abduction of Rama's wife Sita by Ravana, the demonic king of Lanka, and her rescue by Rama and his brother Lakshmana, assisted by the monkey god Hanumana. It concentrates on the death of Ravana's son Meghanad and on Ravana's final defeat, projecting both father and son as tragic heroes rather than as demons. Madhusudan was a Christian convert and was very well read in European literature. His poem was influenced in its structure and tone by Homer, Virgil, Dante and Milton, but the depths of the ocean on which he sailed were Indian. He made this plain in his exuberant English letters. I am going on with Meghanad by fits and starts. Perhaps the poem will be finished by the end of the year. I am glad you like the opening lines. I must tell you, my dear fellow, that though as a jolly Christian youth, I don't care a pin's head for Hinduism. I love the grand mythology of our ancestors. It is full of poetry. A fellow with an inventive head can manufacture the most beautiful things out of it. Madhusudan was the subject of my D.Phil thesis 1987, but I haven't really plumbed his mythological depths until now. The poetry of Rabindranath Tagore, 1861 to 1941, the great Bengali poet, whose works I have been reading and translating for most of my adult life, constructed numerous ships that sailed on the ocean, and several of them can be found in the selected poems of Tagore that I translated for Penguin. He was particularly fascinated by the mythology of Shiva, building not only on mythological tradition but the presentation of that tradition by the greatest classical Sanskrit poet Kalidasa, who lived sometime between AD 350 and 600. The Birth of Kartikeya, Volume 1, pp. 28 to 30, and The Birth of Skanda, Volume 1, pp. 54 to 58, in the present work tell the stories that were basis of Kalidasa's poem Kumara Sambhava, and the efforts made by Kama, god of love, to wake Shiva out of his ascetic trance. See Shiva and Kama, Volume 1, pp. 84 to 87, which were also included by Kalidasa, inspired Tagore's magnificent poem, The Wakening of Shiva. Another fine poem by Tagore, not included in my Penguin book, is To Ahilya, first published in 1890. In The Seduction of Ahilya, Volume 2, pp. 90 to 92, I have retold the various versions that exist in this myth. In his poem, Tagore does not focus on how or why Ahilya was cursed. Instead, he is fascinated by her state of consciousness after she has been turned into a stone, and by what goes through her mind when she is restored to life by the touch of Rama's foot. At the end of the poem, Tagore himself uses an ocean metaphor, which will remind Indian readers of the emergence of Vishnu's wife Lakshmi from the churning of the primeval world ocean, and the Westerners of Botticelli's Birth of Venus. The world smiles. You recognize that smile. You gaze. Your heart swings back from the far past, traces its lost steps. In a sudden rush, all around your former knowledge of life returns. The world crowds in upon you, presses close. In wonder, marvels before your newly revealed. Mysterious beauty, wholly grown yet bathed. In infancy, a flower that on one stem combines the new with the full-formed. Like first created dawn, you slowly rise from the blue sea of forgetfulness. You stare entranced. The world, too, is speechless, face to face. Beside a sea of mystery none can cross. You know afresh what you have always known. Bishaka Sarkar, a Bengali dancer based in Liverpool, has danced to the words of this translation. When she does, she connects not just with Tagore, but with the whole civilization. The music of Paramveer, 1952. One thing that distinguishes the Indian mythological tradition from European traditions is that, like Hinduism itself, it has been unbroken for more than 3,000 years. Although Western artists, musicians and writers have continued to this day to go back to the Greek and Latin classics, the mythology of the Greeks and Romans has not survived in the collective memory of the peoples of Europe. This is partly because of the break in the classical tradition that resulted from Christianity, partly because separate traditions of mythology and folklore, such as the Nordic, Germanic or Celtic, developed independently of classical mythology or Christianity, though they sometimes blended with either or both. In India, by contrast, a creative artist can use his country's most ancient stories with the knowledge that they will still be alive in the minds of his audience. The Indian-born composer Paramveer, with whom I have collaborated on several projects, composes in a Western idiom, and his audiences are mainly in the West. The Indian sources he has used in several of his works may therefore not be known to all his listeners. They are ships with Indian cargo sailing on the western.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?